Hey, I'm Sarah, and this is the Goddess in Training podcast. This isn't about being perfect or polished or having it all figured out. This is about what happens when you actually start listening to your body, your intuition, your patterns, your truth. I'm asking big questions and having real conversations, sometimes messy and sometimes magical, with people who've lived through it, grown through it, and still don't have all the answers. If you've ever doubted yourself, betrayed your gut, or wondered if you're the only one, you're not. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to Goddess in Training. I'm your host, Sarah, and I am so excited about today's guest. You know how we talk a lot on this podcast about learning to trust your intuition? Well, one of the places that gets hardest and most important is when it comes to our own bodies. That feeling that something is just off. The weight won't budge, the hair that's thinning, the sleep that isn't what it used to be, and a doctor who keeps telling you everything looks fine. Learning to trust that inner knowing and then actually advocate for yourself, that's its own kind of spiritual practice. My guest today is Erika Hewlett, a nutritional therapist, practitioner, and yoga teacher who spent 26 years in veterinary care before following her own healing journey into a world of nutrition, minerals, and nervous system health. Erika specializes in helping women navigate perimenopause and menopause, not by chasing symptoms, but by getting to the root. And so much of her approach is about learning to listen to your body's signals, to your hunger cues, to the clues your symptoms are trying to give you. We talk about HTMA hair testing, why your adrenal glands might be the missing piece of the hormone puzzle, how chronic stress is literally stealing your estrogen, and why slowing down isn't just good advice, it's medicine. We also get into fasting, blood sugar, peptides, cacao, circadian rhythm, and the beautiful truth that every one of us is bio-individual. This one feels like a masterclass in coming home to yourself. I think you're going to love it. Let's dive in. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Goddess in Training. I'm your host, Sarah, and today I'm here with my friend Erika Hewlett. And Erika and I met a while ago, and as life goes, it took a while to kind of finally connect, but here we are, and I am so excited to talk to you, Erika, about perimenopause, menopause, hormones, nutrition, all of these things that are integral in all of our lives as women. At some point or other, I think most of the listeners are kind of in that age range where we're either starting to think about it or in the midst of menopause or perimenopause or currently dealing with some of the symptoms. So Erika, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So I was reading that you started out in veterinary care. How did you make the leap from that profession into where you are today?
That's a funny story. Yeah, I was 26 years in the veterinary field. I started I think when I was 21. My last day in the veterinary field was December 31st of 2020. 2020, yeah. But yeah, I had been thinking about nutrition stuff for quite some time. I developed an autoimmune disease when I was in my mid 30s, and I wasn't really told anything about how to help the autoimmune disease other than here's some prednisone cream, and that's the only thing that we have for it. So I started just researching like, hey, I did start to realize I actually do feel better and things clear up when I eat well. So I started noticing like when I eat fast food or if I'm going out a lot, that was a time where I was kind of partying a lot. So I noticed when I was actually taking care of myself that things cleared up. And so it gave me some interest in that. I also had a mom who was type 2 diabetes. So I saw her go through all of that with food and, how food could be healing. She also ended up with kidney disease and kidney failure and was on dialysis. And I have another sister that's got MS, and also have seen her like go into rehab facilities and, be there for 2 or 3 months and come back feeling so much better, not just from the physical therapy, but also from what they're feeding her. So huge improvements. I just started like connecting the dots and going, oh, well, like maybe food is really important. And then I met my husband and he had severe gut issues. It's a really long story. We could probably do a whole podcast on just his issues, but that really had me studying different things every day. So I thought, well, I might as well actually put this to use. So in 2020, I actually when the world went awry, I was like, oh, we really need people to understand and learn more about how important nutrition is. So I went back to school. And when I started going to school, I realized I definitely want to change my career. But the funny thing is that actually, when I was in the veterinary field, I spent a lot of time talking to clients about pet nutrition. I was a practice manager for a veterinary hospital, but when I did talk to clients, I went through the whole stages of pretty much did everything except for be a veterinarian in the veterinary field. But when I did talk to them, I still talk to them a lot about food.
I think so many of us start on this healing path with food because it's one of the places where we can see a direct correlation between the choices that we're making every day and how that makes us feel. Personally, I had thyroid antibodies after having my daughter, and thankfully, I was seeing a more holistic doctor at the time. I hadn't gone completely down the rabbit hole at the time, but I think having babies too was a time that where I was thinking like I want to do what's best for them and got into the whole West Day Price Foundation. So I was already
Yeah.
in the world a little bit, but when my doctor said that I had thyroid antibodies, she was like, just try cutting out gluten first. And I had been feeling a lot of anxiety, just kind of like antsy feeling all the time. And when I cut out gluten at that point, the thyroid antibodies went away and I just felt like a completely different person.
Yeah.
And my daughter's 17 and I haven't intentionally eaten gluten since then. So I may be celiac, but I don't want to eat gluten in order to get the test.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you see those kinds of things in your clients all the time, right?
Yeah, thyroid is a big one that a lot of the symptoms of perimenopause actually mimic the when you have thyroid issues. It's funny because a lot of things, like as we're getting older, start to just not function quite as well as they used to. So thyroid is one that I'm seeing quite a bit in a lot of my clients. That's actually how I figured out I had a thyroid was through my hair test, my HTMA, and then it took me on a path because my blood work was showing my thyroid was fine. And then I did an HTMA test to test the different minerals, and I looked, and there's a specific ratio on the test that tells you how your thyroid is functioning. So yeah, I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. It's showing that I'm having some thyroid issues." And then I just started piecing all of the other things together. I'm like, oh, weight gain, I've got, hair loss. Some like my eyebrow hair is kind of lost. I'm more anxious. So I went down the path of doing some more specific thyroid testing. And although I'm not Hashimoto's, my antibodies were fine, but just everything else was just on the lower end of normal. So I caught it
Okay.
probably months or years before you'd see it on a blood test.
So tell me more about HTMA. And so it's looking at minerals. What else is it looking at when they're testing your hair?
Heavy metals.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, things like mercury, aluminum. It's got a lot of the toxic heavy metals. It also has other different types of metals, and some of those are like just normal, and they're not considered toxic, but they can be if they're too high. Then they
Mm.
can be. So, like zirconium is another one that I see that's high quite a bit. People that have had dental implants are seeing you're seeing more things like that. So, and just like our typical things like hairspray, body lotion, makeup, shampoo, our cleaning chemicals are all containing things that are toxic and that will show up on your my hair test.
It's such great information to be able to access. And that leads me to kind of a bigger existential question, I guess. It's so frustrating when you're experiencing some kind of negative symptom. The best answer, and I've done some long-term fasting. I fasted for water fasted for 5.5 days at the longest that I've done, which we can get into that. I'm sure you have information about that too. But and then when you reintroduce food, you get more information about what's actually affecting you, or going on an elimination diet, you have more information. But the thing that is so hard about being human is there are so many factors that interplay with each other. So, like you were saying, the environmental factors, and I personally have a huge issue with fragrances. And
Mhm.
I just know intuitively that they are not good for any of us in any way,
Right.
shape, or form.
And I've actually learned to become more grateful for the sensitivities that I have because I feel like instead of seeing it as a problem, I'm like, wow, my body is so good at giving me information that protects me.
That's a great way to look at that. I love it.
Yeah, it's been a more of a recent shift because I spent so many years like and partners in my family get so frustrated because I'm just so incredibly sensitive. It's difficult to eat out and it's difficult to go into public spaces sometimes because I'm more sensitive to fragrances, but and then our hormones play into that as well, right? Because it's not a constant. There are times where my daughter I'm like, oh, I feel fine today. And she's like, I put the same exact stuff on. And then I'll be about to get my period, right? And I'll be like, whoa, don't come near me. I feel like I'm going to throw up. I'm getting a migraine from the same exact fragrance. And so I guess the question is, it's so difficult to 100% be like, this is not okay for me. This is okay because it's so tied to so many different factors that all interplay together. How do you, when you're working with clients, help tease out the actionable steps that people can take?
Oh gosh. Well, everybody is it becomes like it's complicated, but yet it's simple because I usually start everybody kind of the same way. Like, let's not jump in to try to do all types of treatments. The other thing is I don't typically go for like keto is great for everybody, or being vegan is great for everybody, or carnivore is great for everybody. And I don't go for those like straight things because everybody is bio individual. So I might be working with somebody. I'll just take my husband as an example, although I work with women, but I've worked with him the most. So he's a really good example of he's allergic to soy, he's allergic to carrots, he's allergic to beans, he's allergic to all of this different stuff. So all of these things would typically be very healthy for most people, but we have to kind of navigate. So I really just navigate based off of the individual person and like, where do we
Mhm.
start? And I really try to simplify it because most of the women that I'm working with are so stressed out that when you throw a bunch of stuff at somebody, they're like, whoa, what do I do? Where do I start? What do I do first? Yeah. So it's really just like start with the simple thing. And a lot of times that's less to do with food and more to do with your nervous system and just being mindful. So that's a really good place to start with most people. A lot of the women that I work with have gut issues. So we just start there. Like, how can we calm your nervous system so that you're actually digesting properly? So just being more mindful when we eat. That's a kind of across the board. A lot of people are go, 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 go. And so they're eating, they're going to grab something, they're going to stand up while they eat, they're going to watch TV, they're going to scroll on their phone, they're going to, eat in the car. I know when I was in the veterinary field, it's just constant. Like there was either emergencies or appointments. And then you're like, oh my God, it's been like 3 hours past lunchtime. Then we'd send somebody to go get fast food and then we would shove it in our mouths as fast as we could. So, really, just being more mindful, slowing down, sitting down, putting your fork down in between bites, counting how many bites you're taking. It seems really weird,
Mm.
but counting and chewing your food 20 to 30 times. I think I just do it naturally now. It's like I'm not counting every time I take a bite, but everybody's like, why do you eat so slow? It's because I'm actually just chewing my food. So just doing those things to get your nervous system kind of in a more parasympathetic state is probably the best advice that I could give across the board.
That makes total sense. It's the same advice that I give to people when they want to tap into their intuition that our bodies give us signals, but we don't listen. We're
Right,
so
right.
busy. And so
Yeah. And
just taking,
on the opposite end of that, when you're really listening and you're doing that, then you're like, oh, I am full. I've only
right.
eaten half my plate, but that's okay because my body is saying I'm full.
And with those kinds of triggers in my own personal life, and I've seen with other people, there's the voice in your head that's like, well, I can eat 2,000 calories today. And
I think I'm under that. So I think I can eat more. And then there's the trauma informed response, that deep seated, like, well, my mom made me sit at the table and I couldn't have dessert until I ate my entire plate of food. So I'm trained. It's very difficult to break that training that I'm going to eat everything on my plate. Or if you come from a place of scarcity where there wasn't enough food, then you're more inclined to eat your entire plate and not listen to those signals. How do you advise people to stop listening to, or how to retrain yourself to actually listen to the intuition that's true, to know what's true and what's either programming or coming from a place of trauma?
That is a difficult question to answer because, again, we come back to everybody is different. I think most of us were like really traumatized. You were bringing up that story, and I'm like, yeah, that was actually really traumatizing. My parents would be like, you have to eat all of your green beans. And of course, I'd be like, here's the dog. Where's the, like,
Right.
my mom would walk away and I'd be like, here's the dog. And we just don't think of those things as like really being traumatizing until we're like, oh, that was traumatizing. Maybe that's why I sit at the table and I'm like, I must eat everything on my plate
I do.
still today
Yeah.
as I'm like 50 years old.
You know what I did? I only eat off of small lunch plates. That's my solution to that
Yeah.
problem. Because
Yeah.
if I have
Right.
something on my plate, like I'm going to eat, I've tried to break myself of that programming, but when it's instilled in you at such a young age, it's so hard to break that mentality.
I think coming back to just being more mindful, I try to tell people to be more mindful. And the other thing is like eating more protein. There's hormones in our body that actually like kind of mess up our signals to tell us whether or not we're actually still hungry or not. And those can get a little out of whack, out of balance. And so, then it doesn't come down to intuition. It's more about like, what is your hormones are signaling you to tell you? It's just like they signal you to tell you as you're coming into your menstrual cycle. Your body is naturally telling you, hormones get signaled to eat more, to do less, and to eat more.
Hmm.
So, really just tuning in and like taking the time and enjoy the meal.
Hmm.
Slow down, enjoy the meal, and try to figure out, am I really hungry? Do I need to feed it? Or do I just need water? Maybe sometimes I need water. So, really just taking that time and being more mindful. So, a lot of it comes back to that intuitive eating, learning how to intuitively eat, being more mindful. So, just doing more mindfulness practices, not like meditating, because I know some people are like, whoa, like I can't, I'm not going to do that. I'm not meditating for an hour so that I can be more intuitive. But just taking that time to turn off the TV and to actually have a conversation with somebody. Don't scroll on your phone. Sit down, chew your food thoroughly, put the fork down in between bites. Those are some things that can really start to help you figure out, if that signal is real or not. And sometimes, like, you might go, "Oh, I have an app on my phone. You know what? Yeah, I'm about to start like in 10 days. My body tells me that I need to eat all of this potato and all of this. I love sweet potato fries. Or maybe like I just went through a menstrual cycle like a few days ago and I was like, oh wow. And I'm in that weird stage of life where sometimes it's like 6 months and then all of a sudden it comes. So I don't have like an actual tracker anymore. And I was like, why am I so hungry? And I was craving things that I don't normally eat, but I was like, I'm gonna get a frozen pizza. And that box of mac and cheese, Velveeta mac and cheese looks really good right now. So I'm like, I'm just gonna do it because I don't do it very often and it makes me happy. So I did.
I love that. I'm a big believer in, like, nothing is inherently bad, nothing is
Right.
inherently good,
Yes.
especially when it comes to food. And I think if you start thinking about things and putting things in boxes like that, is where you get into some negative thought patterns.
Yeah, there's so much noise out there. This is bad for you. This is good for you. I mean, if you just go on social media, I don't know what your feed looks like, but mine has a lot of nutrition stuff on it. And I'm like, what? Like
Right.
somebody got on the other, somebody posted something about like apples were bad or something. I'm like, come on, quit making all my food bad.
Well, like I said, fasting is something that has really taught me that mindfulness. And I know fasting is not for everyone, but it was so profound the first time I did a long multi day water fast that we're programmed to believe that if we have a hunger signal, that we have to respond to that. And when you fast, you just drink some water and then it'll go away. And it goes away for hours and hours and hours. And you're like, wait a minute.
Right?
This isn't something that I actually have to listen to. And it's empowering in a way. And what I enjoy about fasting too is you don't realize how much time and energy we put into feeding ourselves every day. It is so much. Even if you're getting fast food and having food delivered, there's still so much that goes into all of that. And it's kind of freeing to be like, I'm just going to take a break. And then you're like, I have all of this energy to do all of these other things. But downside for me too, as much as I love fasting, I learned that I have to be really careful about when during the month I'm doing it, where I am in my menstrual cycle, because it's easier at some points than at others. And it's also stress on the body.
Mhm.
And so, like, I had to learn that you have to factor that in too, that your body then has to, goes into some of the stress responses when you're not feeding it. And then when you're refeeding, you have to be careful about that too, because your body's kind of like, whoa, this is really different.
Mhm. Yes, yes, yes,
Have you
yes.
ever tried fasting?
Yeah, I actually, did a fasting certification, was it 2024? And I was all into it then. I was like, "Yes, I'm gonna this is what I'm gonna tell all of my clients to do." And then I started realizing how stressful it is on the body. So I don't use it in my practice with my clients that much because a lot of times they're coming to me in a very depleted state already. They're already stressed out. I started seeing when I started doing the hair testing, one of the things that was across the board with all of women that were going through perimenopause is very low minerals. So being in a very depleted state, very low adrenal ratio, which shows me that there's chronic stress that's been going on probably from when we were teenagers, maybe from when we started our cycles, and trauma that's factored into that. Yes, fasting can be a really good healing modality. I do caution against starting there. Like a lot of people use it for like we get to this time period in our life and we're like, oh, I've gained a little weight around the midsection. My pants aren't fitting as well as they used to. And so that's the first thing that we go to is cut calories, cut food, cut calories. Let's fast. And of course, fasting is all across the board. You can see it like pretty much everybody recommends fasting. And it's yeah, and again, you mentioned a really good thing earlier. There's certain times of the month to fast that are better than others. So, definitely like not during or leading up to the few days before your menstrual cycle. So, usually like the first couple of weeks after your menstrual. So, once you stop your bleeding, and you start to get some energy back, that's the time that is better for if you're going to be doing cardio, like let's do cardio during those times. And the last couple of weeks of the cycle or full cycle are the times that we need to like slow down. We need to eat more nourishing foods, be more nutrient dense, eat more food and not fast. So yeah, definitely if you're going to do fasting, I think it can be a great tool, but definitely not starting there.
No, it's a
So
little
yeah.
extreme.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I usually say, like do 2 or 3 months at least to get to a place where your nervous system is prepared for it, that you've been leading up to really eating, period, because I see this a lot, like just on a day-to-day basis, women are not eating enough.
Mm,
Um, so getting them back to a spot and making them feel comfortable about just eating food and kind of getting back to that spot where you were talking about earlier of like there is no really good or bad food. Like I said, I had frozen pizza and some mac and cheese last weekend. Is it the most nutrient dense? No, it's not. Should I eat that every day? No, but I can have it here and there, and it's not a big deal. It can be a mental thing too for a lot of women, as they're like, "Ooh, no, I can't." No, not doing any of that stuff whatsoever. So, anyways, 2 or 3 months of really getting nutrient dense foods and getting our blood sugar balance, making sure that your blood sugar is good before you're doing these fasting. And even when I have guided women through fasting, I'm making sure that they're checking their blood sugar
mm.
so that it's not dropping too low or that it's not staying too high.
Because one of the things when I went through my fasting certification, I did a 3-day fast, and my blood sugar at the time was like all over the place. And even though I was eating well, but just insulin resistance is a thing as we're starting to get into perimenopause. Kind of goes along with adrenal fatigue. So that coming back to cortisol and stress and adrenals and all of that wonderful stuff. But my blood sugar stayed high until the third day. And high, I
Wow.
mean, not like high diabetic level, but it was like over 100. So I would stay between 100 and 120 until that third day. And then it dropped down, which is also very stressful on your body.
Yeah.
And these
Yeah.
just things that you need to kind of watch for. And so at
Mhm.
that point, I would guide somebody to like maybe stop the fast, let's come back and ease out of the fasting, and then come back and really work on regulating the blood sugar before we tried to attempt that again.
For me, I have really low blood pressure and a low resting heart rate. And so fasting is challenging in that sense that it lowers your blood pressure
Right.
even more.
Right.
And so I have to increase my salt. I'm just like, taking bits of sea salt all the time when I'm fasting just to keep those electrolytes
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Interesting. So funny story, a little fact that you should know is that low blood pressure is usually a sign of adrenal dysfunction. Again, this is kind of where most of us are. Like
Yeah.
my doctor said something. I've always had on the lower end of normal blood pressure every time I go into the doctor. And this last couple of times they've been like, is this normal for you? And I'm like, yeah, it is. So yes, definitely things that you need to look at. And again, going through like a longer fast like that, anything longer than, your, I think 12-hour fast, you definitely need to look at replacing electrolytes. So not just salt or sodium, but potassium is a big one too that we're constantly burning through. And I see this on our potassium and magnesium are things that we definitely need to make sure that we're still getting and replenishing during our fasting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
having a really high quality electrolyte is a good thing to have on hand. And again, you need to drink water anyway, so just throw some of that stuff in there.
We are such complicated beings. I wish that it was easier. Do you
Yeah.
ever think about kind of the why behind us being so complicated? And we're animals. Animals basically know the birds outside know what they can eat and know what they can't eat. And we've lost complete touch with the rhythms of nature and what's good for us and what's not good for us. And it makes me wonder, like, is it even possible for us to get back there, or have we completely gotten so out of whack and complicated things?
I mean, there's two things that I thought of when you were talking about that. Like we are complicated, but yet I think it's really cool. Everybody is individual. So I think like that's kind of cool in that sense. The other thing that you touched on is like how we are out of whack. Maybe think of circadian rhythm, which is really, really important, and that we're finding more and more like our light sourcing and how and when during the day we're getting natural sunlight, that has made us really, really dysregulated. It was a few weeks ago and I did an online webinar with Sachin Patel. Do you know who he is?
No, no.
He's kind of in the health world. He does breath work and nutrition and just different coaching, nervous system type stuff. But he said something on that webinar. He said type 2 diabetes is actually a circadian rhythm problem. And I was like,
Wow.
interesting. So it's a light problem, which I've been studying like here and there, not like specifically, but I've just been like, oh, somebody said that. I need to go research that. So I've been more into the circadian rhythm, but they do say get up with the sun and go to sleep with the sun when the sun goes down, not like right away, but within a certain amount of time. But when you get up, go outside and get like 3 to 5 minutes of natural sunlight, even if it's raining, even if it's, cloudy, you're not going to stare up at the sun, but just go outside and let your eyes adjust. It turns off the melatonin signal. And then as the sun, as the sun goes down, that you should actually watch the sunset. So if you can get out, watch the sunset. And then when you take breaks, go outside. So if you add up all the minutes that you need to do that, it's like 10 minutes a day.
Mm.
Go outside for 3 to 5 minutes in the morning, 3 to 5 minutes as the sun is setting, and then a few minutes here and there throughout the day. And that can actually reset a lot of things. Your hormones are just like, oh. Thank you. And then one of the things that I started doing, and I thought that this was complete bullshit for many, 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 many years, but those blue light blocking
Yeah.
glasses. Yeah. And I was like, I am not wearing those. Just not doing it. They're stupid. They look silly. I'm not doing it. It's not cool. I know what you say about it, but I'm not doing it. Right. So I resisted it for a really long time. And then as I started taking the hair testing course and learning more about that, somebody mentioned, let's wear the blue light blocking glasses because a lot of us are staring at a computer screen most of the day these days. We're not getting outside enough, or you have people that even in the evening, like. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, I'm on the computer all day long, almost, or a lot. And then in the evening, I get my meal, and then I go sit in front of a TV, or I'm still in front of like blue light. And a lot of people have replaced the lighting in their homes with these really bright LED lights. So we're not training our system to like calm down, and the melatonin never gets turned back on. So until you make everything darker. But so I broke down and I was like, okay, I'm gonna order the blue light blocking glasses. So I did, and I swear it was crazy. The first night I wore them, I was slept the best that I had slept in a while. It was
Wow.
crazy. I'm doing all of the things now. I'm trying to get up. I don't go to my phone first thing in the morning. I go outside, I get some sunlight. We can come back to it. We're learning more and more things every day. So I'm kind of excited that, like, yes, we've gotten into a weird bad spot because we're on devices and we have that blue light all the time, but people are starting to figure out and seeing the connections. So there's hope.
Kind of like with listening to your intuition, it's like you make little tiny changes. You're a little bit more mindful. You like notice the synchronicities more, and the more you do it, you have that positive feedback loop, and then you want to do more, and it kind of snowballs. You end up doing.
It's amazing. I think our bodies are really just kind of amazing. They truly are. They're constantly trying to come back into this homeostasis balance. And so, things that I look at symptoms like signals. They're just
Mhm.
telling us like, hey, maybe you should listen to me. So I think if we start to look at it in that sense of like, this is not a horrible thing that's happening. It's telling us that we need to do something. It's giving
Yeah,
us
I
a
think so.
clue.
The way we think about things is they're just constantly problems to be solved, which puts you in this negative framing of the entire thing. And so, not just with our bodies, but with our emotions and any kind of thing that feels negative. We're like, I want to solve that problem. I want to get rid of that, and then we miss the point a lot of the time.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. I'm also a yoga teacher, so I started to kind of piece all of this stuff together, and I'm like, there's a lot of our nervous system that's just been disrupted. So a lot of that is coming back to our intuition. How do we come back to our intuition? We're living in a sympathetic state most of the time. So trying to get back to that more of like a parasympathetic state. But you also don't want to be in the parasympathetic state too much either. 'Cause that can make you a little lazy, I guess, or depressed. So,
Okay.
you don't wanna always be there, but just kinda somewhere, like, balanced in the middle. So, like, obviously, you're gonna be in a parasympathetic state when you need to be in a parasympathetic state, and be in a sympathetic state when you need to, like, if you're driving a car and you need to stop because, somebody stops abruptly in front of you, then that's when you really need your sympathetic state to be more on par. And
Mhm.
then also being able to switch back and forth easily and not stick in one or the other for too long.
Right. Everything is such a balancing act for sure.
It is, it is. And sometimes it's just like a simple realizing, like, "Oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't be watching the news 24 hours a day."
Mhm.
That will 100% put you in a sympathetic state. Or if you're doom scrolling social media.
And we were just talking about how you did a retreat in Costa Rica, and I've spent a lot of time in Costa Rica. And, everyone comes back from vacation. They're like, oh, I feel so great. And there are little things that happen generally when we're on vacation that we just don't do when we're here. And it's like, but that we could easily integrate, like you said, like looking at the sun, watching the sunset. These are all little
Yeah.
things that we in our society are like treats that we can only have every once in a while, that we don't allow ourselves to have these things that we call indulgences, but in reality, they're essential to our health.
That's one of the things I actually created a little free checklist of these daily rhythms that you can do throughout the day. And one of those things is like do something that brings you joy, you know? So like if you're on vacation, you would be doing things that bring you joy usually. So like just bring that into your daily life. Do something every day that brings you joy because there's a lot of things that we do that we just kind of we get in the grind of we got to do this, we got to do that. And they're not always things that bring us joy. So for me, like having it on a daily checklist, like, oh, did I have fun today? Because for me, that's really important because I'm an Enneagram 7, which is all about like life has to be fun or I'm not doing it. I'm also a Gemini. So
What's the point of life if we're not having fun and enjoying it, is how I look at it.
yeah, but same, 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 same. Do you know what your Enneagram is?
I do not. I
Oh, you
think I
should.
did at one point, but it's the kind of information that doesn't stick in my brain
Yeah.
very well.
I don't know why I've always liked those things. Like I love personality tests. I'm starting an astrology course this evening. So I'm like, oh, I want to know all about like how the stars affect us and all of the astrology. And I don't know, personality. Give it all to me. Want to know more?
Yeah, I love learning about it, but it doesn't stick very well. I think it's because I'm an Aquarius, which I thought was a water sign, but it's an air sign, which makes a lot more sense for me.
Well,
But
yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm like in the flow all the time.
Right, right.
Things
We're
don't
like,
always
yeah, yeah,
stick. Yeah.
floaty air.
Uh-huh.
I get it. I get it. And that's funny. I don't know what the Gemini is. Is it Earth? Is
I think
Gemini
it's
Earth?
Earth.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense. Now that you say that, I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense because I love to be like grounded and in nature and
Hold on, now I'm gonna look it up.
yeah.
No, it's actually an air sign. We
Isn't
don't wanna
it?
that's what it says. We don't wanna have misinformation
Okay.
about
I mean,
signs on
yeah, yeah, yeah.
messaging.
I know. I'm like, we should probably check that. Let's fact check what we're saying.
Air yeah, air sign. Huh, yeah, but more intellectual, I think, than an Aquarius.
Yeah,
Not that I'm not saying I'm not intellectual, but maybe it's the stickiness. You have more
yeah, yeah,
stickiness
yeah,
than I
yeah.
do.
Some things stick and some things don't. It just depends on what I'm interested in. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, really interested in it. And then a couple days later, I'm like, ah, it's gone.
That's why I love having a podcast where we talk about so many different things. It's like every
Yes.
day I'm learning
Yes.
about something new. So let's dive in more into hormones. The more that I think about the time of life that I'm in, entering into perimenopause and having the desire to have reverence for this period of time in my life, because I think there are so many positives, right? But at the same time, yeah, like you said, things aren't working exactly how they used to, and things that were issues are like becoming bigger issues than they were. How kind of a base level do you help people frame perimenopause and menopause?
I have like one like little explanation that usually sums it all up. um, and that's just kind of explaining like what happens to estrogen. Let's just take, I'm kind of picking on estrogen because it's the biggest one that we think of. So estrogen is usually controlled by our ovaries primarily from the time that we start menstruating. And then as we are going into this transitional stage, they start to, sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's fast. They start to slowly stop producing as much estrogen. And the adrenal glands are actually the thing that's supposed to continue with the estrogen production. But then this is where that trauma and the stress and all of the stuff comes in. And our adrenal glands are constantly pumping out too much cortisol, which is also a hormone. And that's the thing that we need in order to press on the brakes if somebody jumps out in front of us. Or if we're, in meetings, if we have a corporate job or if we're a mom, whatever the case may be, we need the cortisol. So your adrenal glands are responsible for that. If it's too much and over too long of a time period and you're not able to like bring your adrenal glands back into that normal balanced state, they're spending all of their time working on the cortisol. That's like their main job. They can't take over the production of the estrogen. So I
Mm.
think this is what we're seeing in a lot of women these days. And it's like that with a lot of the hormones. So there's usually one thing like that's going to stop producing as much and then something else is going to try to take it over and it's just been overworked or it's working on producing something else. So that's kind of the simplest version of like what's happening in your body. and like why it's happening. And so if you can really start to understand that it's all about stress, we just don't handle those things. And all of these things that I used to say back in the day, I remember my teens and my 20s and my 30s. I spent most of that time on just go, 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 go. And I did have trauma that happened in my childhood. I had trauma that happened in my teens. I had trauma that happened in my adult life. And I worked anywhere from 50 to 70 hours a week.
Hmm.
And I didn't have kids, but there's a lot of women that are also in that same thing that I was doing. So, yeah, and I said I would sleep when I die. That was my thought process. I'm like, I'll sleep when I die. Looking back on it, I'm like, that shouldn't have been my thought process. So things just need to start to shift. We need to, start really working on, slowing down, being more mindful. I think a lot of women during this time period also are faced with some of these, like, we've been able to push all of the traumas back behind us until this time period. And then we're like, here we are. This is what's going to happen, and you're going to have to face it. There's a really good book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And that it just really sums it up. The body does keep the score. So if you really need to start, I guess, just slowing down and being more mindful and being more intuitive and really learning about these things is kind of where you get to that and the point of perimenopause. And when you're starting this transition, it becomes way more important just to slow down. Also, a really good book. It's basically a book about how we're in this go, go, go. The Rushing Woman Syndrome. That's a really,
Yeah.
really great book to really kind of pull that all together in this time period of life. It all comes back to stress and adrenal glands. I really think that a lot of our perimenopausal symptoms that come up, again, where I was telling you, like our symptoms, if we look at them as like not bad, we're looking at them as like this is a clue. It's a clue telling us like we need to stop rushing around. We need to really work on our nervous system. And that can be different for everybody. It doesn't have to look like meditation and yoga. It can be going for a walk or spending time with our dog or listening to music and dancing around your house or, just finding that joy and doing something joyful every day.
Somebody said to me the other day that they were grateful about being in midlife and entering into the crone stage because they like no longer give a fuck about anything and just like say whatever's on their mind. And I think so many of us hit a breaking point, whether it be emotional or physical. And there's just some huge indicator that happens at this point in your life that has you reevaluate and shift and think about what's really important and what's really for you and what's not for you. And so then you make different decisions that may not
Yeah.
be favorable to the people around you, but you're like, so what? This is what I'm doing.
As my stepson said something the other day, and I was like, I don't give a shit. I don't care what they think.
How do you feel about the popularity of longevity things, longevity supplements and practices? And I like when people frame it as healthy aging rather than longevity, but I still feel skeptical about all of it because it's all marketed in this really slick way. And, we're faced with all these celebrities who look like they're 20 years old when they're 60. And it's like we're being sold something that I'm not sure is really possible. And I don't know how healthy it is to be so fixated on longevity.
Mm,
Even when you do frame it as healthy aging, it still has that undercurrent of you should look beautiful, even though you're a certain age. It's like it's kind
right.
of
Yeah.
handed, like,
Yeah.
yeah, dig in a way.
Definitely. I think that unfortunately we're in a society right now we've been more vain, and it's been ingrained in us that we have to be skinny and we have to have no wrinkles and we don't need to have gray hair and all of that wonderful stuff. But I look at the longevity stuff as like, how am I gonna feel? I want to do things and take things that are gonna make me feel really good. I want to be that 80-year-old that's still out there paddleboarding and hiking and, camping and doing yoga and traveling and just really I want to feel my best. So I do think that there are some longevity things that we can do. And there's some helpers. There's definitely some helpers. So I was also a skeptic for a long time and I really pushed off like trying any type of peptides because a lot of the actors and actresses are doing the peptide thing now. And there's some peptides that can help you look younger. But I actually tried one last year. I got into the whole peptide world because I have been struggling. I told you my mom had type 2 diabetes. And so I've been struggling with keeping my blood sugar balanced or within a normal range on a regular basis. And it was just tracking a little higher than I wanted it to, and I could feel it.
Mm.
And it was funny because I would go to the doctor and I would say, I'm wearing a continuous glucose monitor right now. I know my blood sugar is higher than what's normal, So let's do all these tests. So we'd do the tests and they'd come back and they'd be like, oh, well, your blood sugar is fine. You're fine. Everything is normal. Your thyroid looks normal, all that wonderful stuff. And I'm like, but there's just something I know I just don't feel my best. I'm not sleeping as good as I used to. My pants are a little bit tighter than they used to be. My hair is thinning, just like weird things that were happening that was just not showing up to the doctor. My doctor, she's great. She's like, you look great. I think you look fine. And I'm like, yeah, but my pants are too tight. I don't want to buy new pants. So anyways, I ran into somebody I'd been listening to a couple of podcasts where they were talking about tirzepatide specifically and using it in a microdosing situation where you're not taking the full dose so you don't get all of the weird side effects. And that could help to regulate your blood sugar. Doing all of the studying and research that I have on metabolism and your blood sugar and what happens to that, during perimenopause. And I was like, okay, this intrigued me. And so I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and try this. So I ran into somebody who had joined a company. And so I was like, you know what, I'll try it through that. And I ordered it and I thought, I'm just going to give it a try for a month and see. After first time I took it, I instantly was like 2 days later, right? It wasn't instant. Like I didn't do the injection. It wasn't instant, but 2 days later I woke up and I was like, I have so much energy. This is crazy. Like I slept good. I felt great. I felt less bloated, which was interesting. And what they sent me, they told me to take like whatever the amount was. I took an eighth of what they told me to take. So it was a micro dose. And so I just went on through that and I've been taking a micro dose every week and I test my blood sugar and it's within normal ranges now on a regular basis.
Wow.
So I'm pretty impressed with that particular thing. I think in the longevity aspect of it, it'll make me live longer because
Mm.
my blood sugar is balanced. I feel better. I feel more energy. And so that's what I want. It's not necessarily for the body, like, hey, I want to look younger portion of it, but I just really felt so much better. So I took that and did a peptide certification course. And there's so many out there that people have been using for years. And peptides are just chains of amino acids. And what I've learned about it is that just like everything else starts slowing down and getting to a low level, like your estrogen and your progesterone and your testosterone, all that stuff starts, coming down. So peptides are going to be kind of like HRT, hormone
Mm.
replacement therapy. You'll have a peptide replacement therapy because these peptides are naturally occurring in our body. But then as we get older, we're just not able to produce enough of them. So
Wow.
you can get them from eating foods. Like a lot of the peptides you can get from eating. That's why we say eat higher amounts of protein because you're getting a lot of those amino acids through protein sources are the biggest one. Not only protein, I mean, you can get it from other sources as well, but
Yeah.
protein is the thing that is got the big thing. So yeah, I mean, you can either eat all of that and like really do that, or you can go the other direction. So I think in our society, it's definitely easier. I'm not going to say I took the easy way out because I spent 5 years studying nutrition and eating the things that are good for my body. It's just I was coming from a depleted state. So this gave
Mhm.
me the little up level of like, hey, and I mean, I feel great. And so I'm all for it. If it takes that and like I can save somebody 5 years of working on that, then let's do it. And like my anxiety's been better.
Wow.
I'm using some other peptides too.
It's such a great example of advocating for ourselves too. I think so often women are like, I'm fine. And like, if a doctor especially is like, oh, you look great, and you're like, okay, well, then I guess I am great. But I think if we were to really listen to that inner voice, like, no, 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 like you did, there's something wrong. There's something not wrong necessarily, but there's something that's a little bit off. I think if we listened and acted on that more often, we would be overall
Yeah.
healthier.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I just didn't feel my best. I'm doing all the things. I'm a nutritionist. Like I'm doing all the things.
And we
uh,
should. I mean, that's what I tell people about their emotions too. Like, we should feel our best as often as possible. We deserve that. Yeah.
exactly. Right. So I'm like, I'm all for it. So whatever you need. And I like to help women guide them down the path of what's right for them because it's not going to be right for everybody, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of the peptides and these longevity things are injectable. They are coming out with some more that are they're finding ways to like make them into little dissolvable strips or things, but they're just not as bioavailable in the body as the injectable things are. So, and that's not for everybody. A friend of mine that was like, "Oh, this would be perfect for you," and she was like, "I can't do the injection." And like, that's
Mhm.
great. They have come out with an oral form of some of these things too. So instead of doing, you just have to do it more often. So
Right, right.
daily.
And so I read that you and I share a common ritual. I am also a lover of cacao. Tell me about how you integrate cacao into your life.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of caffeine. It just makes me super jittery. So, and coffee, this is one of the things like most people don't know is that we typically have a gene. I can't remember what the name of it is right now, but that we actually don't do well with coffee. And the way that we drink coffee is crazy. Coffee can be like you mix all the other stuff into it, and it's really bad for you. But having coffee on an empty stomach first thing in the morning to an already depleted person who's going through perimenopause and all that stuff can be even more depleting to your minerals and depleting to your stress hormones. A friend of mine in Phoenix who is a therapist or used to be a therapist, she's gone into more like somatic therapy, but she got into cacao and she's like, if you want to try it, I'll just send you some. So she sent me some and that I just went deep dive into it. And as soon as I had it, I was like, oh, I feel energized in a good way from this, not in a jittery way. I remember going to like when I was in college and I did night courses and I'd drink a cup of coffee at like 7 o'clock at night and it wouldn't hit me until like 1 a.m. And then I was like,
Mhm.
now I'm wide awake. So the cacao is something that is just packed with a lot of our minerals that we need. It's really high in magnesium and antioxidants. So I drink it daily. You can use it and I do like to use it as a ceremonial. There's a ceremonial dose. Um, so yeah, I got into that because it's a good way to bless and be intentional about what's going into our body. And so I make the cacao and I love where it comes from. The cacao that I order is from Cacao Source, and I know it's made with a tribe. It's a woman-owned company. It's made by women.
Wow.
It's the purest form of the cacao, the chocolate that you can get. So, and who knew? We've always said like we want chocolate. Chocolate's good for us. So
Yeah.
yes,
I drink it every day. Sometimes I drink it twice a day because
same.
even drinking it before bed,
Yeah,
it's not stimulating. And
right.
it can be stimulating. In the morning, it feels stimulating, but then at night, it's also a wind down and it just makes me feel so grounded. And my secret is I add a little salt to it, and that just amplifies the flavor. And
I
I do
add
little mix in some.
cinnamon.
Yep, I do cinnamon sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but I'm gonna add the salt. I never thought about adding salt, but like
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah,
It's funny because I ran out and then I got a new package of it and I made it up and I'm drinking it. I'm like, there's something missing. And then I realized I didn't put
I need
salt
to
in
add
it.
the
So for
salt.
me, it makes a really big difference. So give that a try.
I salt everything. Me and the sea salt are we're
Uh,
one.
uh-huh. Me too. Me too.
So yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of that. So thank you. Totally gonna start doing that. I might actually just go make a cup of cacao right now. Put some salt in it. I'm like, "Ah, that's a really great idea."
It's delicious. Absolutely delicious. Erica, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. What do you have coming up that you're excited about?
So I'm working on more retreats. So that'll be happening in the next, I don't know, this year for sure. I think I have 2 that are in the works, but we don't have the exact dates yet. So definitely more of that. Mid-April, I'm working on a 3-month program called Fatigue to Flourish. And that's going to be kind of encompassing everything like our minerals, our hair tests, our nervous system work, nutrition. It's gonna be awesome.
When you do retreats, are they focused on the nutrition and the hormones? Or are they in yoga? Are you including all those different aspects together?
The last retreat that I did was mainly focused on yoga, but we did have nutrition piece of it just because the place that we were staying had just amazing food there. So weaving into like making sure that we're eating nutrient dense meals while we're there. And then I did some workshops while on the last retreat, just talking about like the basics of nutrition and minerals and how to incorporate those things into our daily life, but really focusing more on nervous system. So I don't teach the traditional yoga. I did have a co-host that did a morning traditional yoga class, but my yoga is restorative and yin. So it's really calming us down, getting deep into our tissues. I also do sound healing now. The retreats are going to be just restorative, relaxing, calming, and focusing more on getting us back into a parasympathetic state.
Amazing. We do not take that time for ourselves. And so it sounds absolutely amazing.
We don't. Yeah. And then adding the food piece to it and just making sure that we have good food during the retreat is also a good way to calm your nervous system.
Well, and get more minerals. When I'm in Costa Rica, I definitely feel like the fruit tastes differently. It feels more nourishing. And I think that's because it doesn't
It's
travel as far and
right.
it has more
Fresh. Like
minerals in it.
you get the banana off the tree
Yeah.
and then you eat it.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
amazing. The coconut. Oh, that was one of the things that they had fresh coconuts, on a regular basis for us there. And so I was like, ooh, I got back to the States and I went to the grocery store and I was like, oh my God, they have coconut. I never knew. They just have coconuts I've never looked for them. So I got them and I'm like, it doesn't taste the same. I mean, it's still good. It's better than having the coconut water out of the out of the
Yeah.
box, but I'm still like, oh, that's not as good as it was in Costa Rica. It's just always better when it comes straight from the source.
Exactly. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Yes, it has.
Thank you for tuning in to Goddess in Training. I hope something in this episode stirred your knowing or softened your heart. If it spoke to you, share it with someone who needs it, or leave a review or comment to help others find us. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to hear more conversations like this, please consider supporting Goddess in Training on Patreon. For more tools and offerings to deepen your intuition practice, visit goddessintraining.online. You can also join the Scroll of Sashat on Substack for twice-weekly stories of how I followed my intuition. The music for Goddess in Training is Madre Ayahuasca by Arkawa, and you can find more of his music in the link to his website in the show notes. Remember, your intuition is not a mystery, it's a memory. Keep listening.
Resplandor del fuego, estrellita, tabaco santo, fuerza de rape, soplo de luz, soplo encantado, viajecito, bendición del cielo, fortaleza, tigrecito de la selva.